We are coming on the air with the new details in a deadly chemical implosion at an industrial plant in Washington state. What we know about how this tank ruptured, burning multiple people and killing at least one. Then President Trump's new Texas-sized test. We are just hours away from polls closing in a key runoff that could give us the next big clue about how much power the president really wields over the GOP. Plus, the new way some folks want to crack down on those so-called teen takeovers after this scene in Chicago, why kids' parents may end up in hot water, too. Then, in our breakdown, the new warning that the Ebola outbreak is spreading faster than the response in the DRC. Our team taking a closer look on the ground. And the roster is now out for the Stars playing the field. Everything you ever wanted to know about the World Cup in 3 minutes or less as we count down to kickoff. That's coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are starting tonight with that breaking news out of Washington state, where officials say at least one person is dead after an implosion at a manufacturing plant. Here's what we know so far as you take a look at the scene here. Police and the fire department say this tank, a chemical tank used to make paper, ruptured earlier today. A local hospital says 9 people initially came in hurt. One of those people died. Some people are still in critical condition. You can see where it all happened here on the border, right here on the border between Washington state and Oregon. Take a listen to some of the back and forth between first responders as those first calls came in from that packaging facility.
3401 Industrial Way at Nippon for hazmat burn. 3401 Industrial Way, Control 1 clear 721.
Control 1, Chief A1, will you give me the details?
Chief A1, we're reporting a tank imploded. It looks like there's 3 people with chemical burns and 1 subject is missing.
I want to get right to Steve Patterson now, who's been tracking this from the Pacific Northwest. Steve, what do we know?
Yeah, Hallie, unfortunately, the operative phrase that you used there in the lead up to me was at least one person dead. Unfortunately, authorities have been talking about the numbers. They're leading us to believe that there may be more because there's an undisclosed number of missing in that situation as well. What we know, this all started about 7:30. That implosion, right, as opposed to an explosion, happened at that packaging plant about 45 miles north of Portland, as you laid out in the map there. There was a chemical in a vat, and that is what the trigger point was. Apparently, it is what's called white liquor, which sounds weird. It's used to make pulp out of wood chips. High pressure, high heat, a lot of volatile situation there. We don't know who's at fault. We don't know if this was an accident. We really don't know the situation inside the plant, only what the result was. And the result, of course, is tragic. At least one dead. Police on scene investigating the scene. Thankfully, is sort of self-contained, right? There's not really a huge populace outside of there. Authorities saying no threat to the public at this point, but they are continuing their investigation. We should know more in a little bit. Hallie?
So, Steve, I would be remiss not to note that you were on the scene of that toxic chemical tank incident. Another toxic chemical tank incident that we are following a little further south down the Pacific coast there in California. Bring us up to speed, because there was some good news over the last 24 hours, at least some better news, which is that they don't think there's going to be a horrifically catastrophic explosion. That said, people are still not out of the woods yet, right?
Yeah, better news is the way to put it. We're much closer now. I can take you back here. You can see the barriers are up, the sheriff's department. Probably about a mile that way is where that tank is. It is still a very dangerous situation, especially for anybody there. Thankfully, there was no one there. Still 16,000 people out of their homes, a far cry from the 50,000 that were over the weekend. But crews are still on scene working around the clock because an explosion, albeit a much smaller one, is possible. They were able to finally determine that a crack in there was releasing all the pressure. All the pressure is gone, and so the possibility of this catastrophic, huge explosion that would have decimated the area that I'm frankly standing in right now is over. However, again, it still remains unstable. The heat in that tank is still way too hot, so they're trying to do all they can, as you've seen the video, the cooling jets, try to bring that temperature down, trying to make sure that it's more of a solid than that liquid chemical, because it's a lot less volatile in that state. If they can do that, and because there is no possibility of that massive explosion, they're able to do more things to try to figure out out much more of a better solution that wouldn't mean, again, an explosion or leaking out onto the ground into the waterways. If they're able to do that into sort of, solidify the situation, then people might be able to come back. But that still may be a far cry. Authorities working on it. They say they're positive, though, that no chemicals are coming from that thing. No vapors are being released into the atmosphere. All good news, of course, from where we were just a few days ago.
100%. Steve Patterson out there on the scene for us again tonight. Steve, thank you very much. Let's bring you back here to Washington and overseas, because tonight Iran is accusing the U.S. of blowing up a ceasefire, literally, after American strikes near the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Defense Department says those strikes were defensive, that they were self-defense, targeting missile launchers and Iranian boats trying to lay down mines near the strait. But Tehran says that attack undermines the negotiations that are happening, or supposed to be happening right now, to end the war. We're going to have more on that from Monica Alba at the White House in a second. But I want to start with Matt Bradley, who is live for us in Tel Aviv. And here we go again, it seems, Matt. Bring us up to speed when you've got negotiators on the ground trying to have some of these conversations about peace. You've got these, what have been described as defensive attacks to try to stop Iranian mines in the strait.
Yeah, and amazingly, Hallie, it looks as though this ceasefire is still somehow staying in place. The Iranians haven't really hit back in any real way, though they haven't really held back when it came to the bluster and the threats, even threatening, as they always have been, America's allies in the region, those Gulf Arab states that have increasingly been coming under fire, rattling their reputations as safe havens for doing business in the region, and really piling even more pressure on the U.S. and on Donald Trump specifically to come to some sort of deal. Now, the last thing we heard, Hallie, about the status of these negotiations was that there were teams in Doha from the Iranian side who had been in those discussions. They have since left, we understand, though that isn't necessarily a signal, and we haven't heard anything to indicate that it is a signal that these negotiations have been shutting down or that they've been frustrated. This is kind of just how things go. But as you mentioned, there was that U.S. attack on Iranian sites overnight, and we did hear from Marco Rubio earlier today saying that it looks as though these talks could actually take a few more days and that there have been disagreements over some of the details in the negotiations, in the language. Now, that's not so surprising, but it's still a pretty big pivot from what we heard over the weekend when the Trump administration was acting like we were about to see a deal at any time in the next couple of days that could free up the Strait of Hormuz and, according to the Trump administration, forbid Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, at least for the foreseeable future. Now, all of that has been called into question, and not just because of those U.S. attacks against Iran overnight, but also probably, we can fairly assume, because of some of that pushback that the Trump administration got from even their own allies who had been supporting the war on Capitol Hill, some lawmakers who were really just heaping praise on the Trump administration for attacking Iran in the first place. Now, they've been vocally, voicing their reservations about whether or not this deal is even worth it.
Matt Bradley, lots to follow on the Iran front tonight. Matt, thank you very much. Live for us from the region. Monica, let me get to you. President Trump was supposed to be heading to Camp David tomorrow for a cabinet meeting. That has been scrapped because the washout of the long holiday weekend is extended into the week here in Washington. They got a weather out. But interestingly, he took a bit of a break from, I think, all things Iran today, or at least publicly. And instead, he went to Walter Reed Hospital for a checkup, right? This is his third, I think, in just over the last year. And it comes when we've talked about this. He's had, the bruises on the hands that we've discussed. The White House says that comes from too much, handshaking, intensive handshaking, basically. But there's, he's going to be 80 in 3 weeks. What's going on? What's the verdict from the docs?
Yeah, the bruised hands, the swollen ankles, these questions that are mounting. He is, of course, the oldest ever president to have been inaugurated. He does turn 80 in a couple of weeks, as you pointed out. But according to the president, he says he had his checkup today and that everything went, according to him, quote, perfectly. Now, typically, the White House will put out some kind of a memorandum or some kind of a one-pager on how the actual tests went that will come from his own personal physician, who will share what kind of medications the president is on, what kind of tests he went under today, and what kind of things were potentially found or not found. We haven't seen that yet, Hallie, but we know, according to a White House official, that we should expect it in the next 24 hours or so. So we will really be on the lookout for that. But yes, the president today actually called it in that social media post his 6-month physical. So that seems to imply that he's going to be going back for these kinds of checks every 6 months or so. And the third time in the last year and a half kind of times out to that pacing. He's had a couple of dentist appointments down in Florida Florida as well when he has been down at his West Palm Beach club. And so today we understand he underwent some routine dental examinations as well. But we haven't gotten the full picture yet from the White House. We hope to soon.
Okay, Monica Alba, line for us there on the North Lawn. Mon, thank you very much. The president, obviously in Washington, but looming large over the state of Texas, where tonight we're going to get the next big sign of just how much his opinion matters to Republican voters in that very red state. The president wants Ken Paxton to win the Republican runoff in the state's Senate race. He wants Ken Paxton. He's endorsed Ken Paxton over John Cornyn. And if you're like, that name sounds familiar, that's because he's the sitting senator. He's like, pretty high up in the leadership tree there. He's the incumbent, et cetera. There's a lot of people in party leadership who think the president made the wrong choice, that if Paxton were to win this primary, he could lose to Democrat James Tallarico. Remember, he won his party's, the Democratic primary, back in March. And this is a big deal because if Democrats want to take back the Senate, they're going to have to win tough races like this one. However, caveat, we are talking about Texas. And every couple of years, right, we hear from Democrats about maybe they can take Texas, maybe they can take Texas has not elected a Democrat to statewide office since Philadelphia's own Boys to Men topped the charts with I'll Make Love to You back in 1994. It's been a minute. Our team heard from a couple of Republican voters near San Antonio about what they'd like to see ahead of tonight. Listen to this.
Paxton is a fighter, and I've always liked Paxton.
And I know the president endorsed Ken Paxton, but I have real concerns about the ability of Republicans to win in November in Texas. I think we're faced with the biggest challenge we've probably had in decades.
Let me bring in who else? Steve Kornacki, who's posted up at the big board for us. Friend, I'm so glad to see you on our Tuesdays as these occurrences are becoming more and more regular in midterm primary season. It was interesting to hear from that voter there, Steve, about their concerns over Ken Paxton. John Cornyn is literally, it's truly the fight of his political life here. Where does he have to do well if he wants to try to upset the apple cart, which is wild to think about the incumbent doing that and beat Ken Paxton?
Yeah, well, a happy runoff day to you, Hallie. And I guess if there's one thing that Cornyn may have going for him coming into this, he did outperform expectations in the preliminary. So go back and show you those results. This is what happened back at the start of March. Remember, there were multiple candidates there. And Cornyn, this was actually a surprise to folks. He finished first in the preliminary. He got more votes than Ken Paxton. Wesley Hunt, the congressman from the Houston area, came in third place. Now the top two advanced to this runoff. So there is a bit of a blueprint here. Now, Trump did not weigh in this preliminary, but there's a bit of a blueprint here for Cornyn. Basically, it involves the population centers. He did his best generally in the population centers, especially right around, whoa, that got really big right there, right around the Dallas area, especially around the state capitol in the Austin area, a few other sort of metro areas around the state. The other thing that happened for Cornyn, though, that surprised folks in that preliminary, you can see here this maroon, this dark shade of red, that's Cornyn's color. It's not just in the cities, it extends into central Texas, into the panhandle, a bit into West Texas. He did better in small towns and rural Texas than had been expected. A lot of folks thought the bottom might fall out there, and I think that's one of the big questions here. With Donald Trump's endorsement, some of these counties, some of these areas, in rural areas where Cornyn did surprisingly well in the preliminary, they're also deeply, deeply pro-Trump areas. Are those places where the president's endorsement will change the calculus here, will change the math in this runoff tonight? But it was doing better than expected in rural areas, running up margins here in these population centers. And I think one place that looms particularly large tonight, Hallie, in this runoff, it's right here, Harris County, where Houston is, biggest in the state, like 10% of the vote's going to come out of here. You see Cornyn actually carry this. He carried it by a sliver over Paxton in the preliminary. But what makes it so interesting, as we mentioned, that's where Wesley Hunt's from. Wesley Hunt got more than 20% of the vote in Harris County. He has also endorsed Ken Paxton. When Trump made that endorsement last week, Hunt did too. So that's one of those, it's giant, a ton of votes there. It's really kind of a toss-up on paper. But there, will that combined weight of the Trump and Hunt endorsement make the difference?
So what about on the Democratic side? You've got an interesting race that we talked about, back in, I guess it was March, Steve, when we were doing all the primaries initially before the runoff, this so-called battle for the soul of the Democratic Party in Texas, right, between two members of Congress. And there's a real generational sort of angle to this.
Yeah, right in this same Houston area we're talking about, March 3rd, that's when that preliminary was. Feels like so long ago, but here it was, Christian Menefee. He was just elected here to a different seat in a special election a couple months ago. But because of all of that redistricting, there's a new district that sort of emerged here. Menefee and then Al Green, a decades-long incumbent here in this district. And just show you, it basically straddles two counties here. Harris County, where Houston is. This is where most of the population is. And this is where Christian Menefee's political base is. The rest is just south in Fort Bend County. This is Al Green's political base. It's a little bit smaller, but what happened in the primary was Green ran up massive numbers in his part of the district. Menefee won his part of the district, but not by the same kind of margins. And it translated into, look at that, it was very close in the preliminary. It was less than 2 points. Menefee did finish ahead of Green, but Green made it closer than folks thought. Again, because his part of the base, it's smaller in terms of population as part of the district, but he got massive, massive numbers out of it. He needs that area, Fort Bend County, to come through even bigger for him tonight, or he will face retirement.
So if people are like, I want more, I want to watch it all as it unfolds, I want to watch Steve break down the returns. Steve, how do they do it?
There it is. Oh, you put the graphic up, I could say it. Kornacki Cam, 8 o'clock Eastern, NBCnews.com. We're on YouTube. We're doing minute-by-minute results. Come in and join us.
Steve, you teased us like 5 times. I love it. I mean, like, we have a tagline now. We made a thing for you. We're so excited. Pal, we're really, really looking forward to it, and we'll see you next week, too. I know there's just a lot coming up in end of May, early June, so
looking
appreciate you.
Thanks,
Steve. Let's take you to some other news tonight because we're just learning. This is so interesting. Police have arrested a couple people in Argentina, allegedly connected to a series of burglaries at some athletes' homes in the U.S. Here's some of those arrests we've got on video here. Argentinian police have not said which athletes, where these burglaries happened, etc. But it comes after the DOJ charged several suspects involved in a series of break-ins in 2024. Some of it allegedly caught on camera. Some of this we reported on extensively over the years. Big names: Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Joe Burrow's homes, broken into within months of each other while they were away or playing in professional games. I want to bring in Jesse Kirsch, who's watching this. To be careful and to be clear here, Jesse, it's not like we can link for sure those athletes that we just had up on the screen with these arrests in Argentina, but it is a fascinating, potential new subplot in all of this, or potential new twist.
Absolutely, Hallie. And for what it's worth, our team has reached out to the Department of Justice here in the United States, where these charges had come from last year. And the DOJ says it's not going to be commenting on recent arrests or any potential pending extradition. So at this point, it's unclear to be certain if these arrests are connected with those incidents you just talked about. But what we know from Argentinian police is they say these are people who were involved in incidents in the United States in which valuables worth around $2 million were taken. And the DOJ, when it announced the charges in those incidents involving Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Bobby Portis and others, they talked about more than $2 million worth of valuables having been taken. So, again, not a definitive connection there, but certainly seems to be at least the same general realm of issue. And this is something that's been getting a lot of attention over the last couple of years. Some people had been arrested when those charges, around the time when those charges were announced last year, but it's been more than a year now that we've been waiting to see if there would be any developments, and potentially we're looking at some progress here right now. But this is, of course, something that major sports leagues in this country have warned their athletes about, the possibility of having a burglary occur at their home. And you mentioned this being at times when people were in the middle of a game or out of town. So these are people who, a lot of the times, we know about their homes. Their homes sometimes are featured in the media. We know where they're going to be and when they're going to be in a lot of situations because, of course, they have games that are scheduled. So, it's a very vulnerable situation to be in on something that has been high profile in the last couple of years.
You're hitting on something that I think is so important, Jesse, which is it's sort of unusual that you have somebody who is well known, who's known to be making a lot of money, who's known to be living in a certain location, right, whatever city that they play for, and where you know their schedule. You know that if, like, whatever team is playing some away game, that they're not going to be home. And that's what made these athletes, in many ways, so particularly vulnerable to these kinds of crimes, right?
Yeah, spot on. These are people who you know to the minute where they're going to be. I mean, we literally know when a kickoff is. We know when a tip-off is. And as long as someone's not injured and not traveling with their team, you know where they're going to be. You know exactly where they're going to be. You know the address they're going to be at. And again, when we had covered these stories in the past, even Patrick Mahomes, he had toured around his house in at least one video series. So, a lot of the times it's no secret where these people live if you do a little digging, and that's something that also can add to that vulnerability. And even if this is someone who has their own security team, that may not necessarily make you completely impervious to something like this happening.
Jesse Kerr, super interesting. Thank you very much for joining us on that. Thank you. Now to news. You know me. We don't do hyperbole around here, but let me tell you, this next story, it's a mission that could reimagine space travel as we know it. Think about that. Is your brain explode? It's big, right? NASA says it's going to establish a home base for astronauts on Artemis on the moon. It's calling it humanity's first ever lunar outpost. And that's not even the end goal. That's not even the ultimate destination. The goal is to get humans to Mars eventually. So it's kind of like a way station, a bit of a stopover, if you will. They're rolling this out in 3 phases starting later next year, when they're going to kick things off with a series of robotic missions. By 2029, that's not that long from now, 3 years away, they're going to have built that base, they say. And then by 2032, astronauts living and working on the moon could be a reality.
So for those waiting patiently, the grand return is close at hand, and we will not slow down. We are moving with the competence and the purpose to accomplish the missions that only NASA is capable of achieving, and we are really just getting started.
You know Tom Costello had to get in on this one. He is joining us now here. This is this is Star Trek stuff come to life.
I thought what was impressive today is that the timeline is so aggressive.
It's like 5 minutes from now, basically.
Well, they're starting this year. I mean, really.
2032, Tom. I'm going to still be in my,
You'll still be sitting there.
Young 30s. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes, you will. But the bottom line here is that they are going to start these robotic missions this year, 25 robotic missions in phase 1, then they go to phase 2, then they go to phase 3. So what does a lunar base look like? It's a permanent presence. Look at that. It's a permanent presence on the moon. Hundreds of square miles, you guys. We're not talking about just that. Hundreds of square miles, complete with a solar power station, a nuclear power station. And then what's the ultimate goal here? Well, the ultimate goal really is to go to Mars. But listen, they've targeted an area which is near the South Pole. And as you and I have discussed before, they believe that there is water ice there. Critical because that could be used for multiple things, including potentially drinking water, rocket fuel, you name it. Take a listen to one of the NASA deputy administrators about what they're hoping the NASA presence, the permanent astronaut presence, looks like.
With Moonbase, Artemis astronauts will stay longer, explore farther, and conduct the kinds of science that advances exploration itself, understanding how humans operate off-world, how we build infrastructure, and how we prepare for Mars.
So Artemis 4, remember we just had Artemis 2, loop around the moon and come back, right? So now Artemis 4, not 3, 4, will land on the moon potentially in 2028. I wouldn't be surprised if that slides a bit, but that's the idea, right? And then in the meantime, building out this lunar base, I should say, and that permanent presence in 2032. But get this, Hallie Jackson. The Chinese, as you know, are targeting the exact same spot. And so now Artemis today, for the first time, laid out that they want to create parameters, I should say, to the base, right? They want to mark it out with lasers. So this is our territory kind of thing. Boy,
so we're going to get into a turf war on the moon? Is that where this is heading?
Right? This sounds almost like that Apple series, right? But the bottom line here is that they want to create territory that is definitely America's territory on the moon. We'll see how that flies.
How long can they stay up there? In other words, if you're Tom Costello, the astronaut, not ruling that out, and you want to go live and work on the moon in 2032 when this thing opens, are you staying up there indefinitely? Is this is this a year? Like, how long are those missions?
Probably to start with, weeks and then extend it out to months. But here's the biggest problem they've got. There are significant risks to being on the moon. For example, the radiation exposure alone could kill you. That is really serious. They've got to figure out how they get around that.
Also, the gravity thing.
There ain't none. Right. Is that what you mean? They're going to float away?
Yeah, like they got to have moon. I mean, I don't, Tom, I don't know how
There's not much.
But there's,
Well, they got enough that it will, they will be able to drill down there. But lastly, one more point here. and that is that they have got to figure out how they shield themselves from the micrometeorites. I mean, it rains micrometeorites. One of those hits you on the head, and you're a goner.
But when you say micrometeorites, you're not saying it's not dust. It's like
it's like little micro rocks that are coming and pelting the moon constantly. And when the Artemis crew was going around the moon, they shot video of these little micrometeorites constantly hitting the surface of the moon.
But end goal here is not just that they're going to have a moon base and they're going to live on that and shield themselves from these little, space rocks that are pelting them. It's almost like if you're flying from here to, around halfway around the world, you got to do a layover. It's almost a layover on the way to Mars, right?
Well, that's right, because if you want to go to Mars, the idea is you use that as a foothold, because just getting to Mars, the biggest loss of energy, if you will, rocket fuel, is just escaping the Earth's gravitational pull. So now they are talking about using nuclear power on the moon and nuclear power in rockets taking humans to Mars.
It's a new frontier.
It's pretty cool.
Tom Costello.
I'm going to have a lot to talk about for the next few years.
Consider yourself booked and busy on this show till 2033, my friend. Thank you. Right. And if you are watching and you can't get enough of it either, I'm telling you, Gotti Schwartz, guess what? He's going one-on-one with the NASA administrator, Jarek Isaacman, tonight. You know Gotti's going to get into it. That's 8 o'clock right here on NBC News Now. Also tonight, we've got to get to weather that's developing across the country, with nearly 30 million people in the South facing the threat of major flooding again tonight after days and days of really intense rain. Look at the scene in Mississippi. At least one person has been killed there after her car got swept away by water. In Texas and North Carolina, some yards are turning into what look like lakes. And it's not just rain. We've got a lot of wind ripping up the East Coast. Look at this. It's almost, they call it a water spout. This is on a Florida beach. Look, people, get out of the way, folks. Umbrellas flying. That stuff can be so dangerous. You see people sprinting to try to get to safety. Overnight, a tornado battered parts of Alabama, just one of many places expecting more storms to come. Dave Price from WNBC is joining us now with the forecast. Dave, you and I talked yesterday.
Listen.
Said there might be sun eventually. Where is she?
Well, the sun came out for folks in the Northeast, but we got 3 areas we're really concerned about, Hallie, as we take a look around the country. Number 1, areas to the Gulf states and the Southeast where that warm, moist air continues to feed to the north. Number 2 is up in the Ohio Valley. This area is new. And number 3, we talked about this yesterday, too, out in West Texas, where we see some strong thunderstorms. I mean, heavy downpours, upwards of 3 inches an hour. So you talked about that 30 million number. Those are under a flash flood watch or a flash flood warning. And you can see that's an expansive area geographically and certainly population-wise that covers a good number of people. So let's talk about it a little. What can we expect and what's happening? Well, you see that flow, and there's the front line. And what we're seeing are storms continuing to do what we call training right along there. So as we head into tomorrow, more showers and storms for parts of the South. We see an elevated flood risk along the Gulf Coast. As we head our way into Thursday, we get more rain, but it's over all that saturated soil. So that creates a flood risk and enhances it. And then some storms will also begin to develop and pop in the plains, in the southern plains, right along Oklahoma City. So an elevated flood risk, that's what we're looking for. Dangerous flash floods possible. And some areas could see upwards of a half a foot of rain. Hallie. That's a lot.
Dave, thank goodness we got you to break it down for us. Thank you, my friend. I know you're juggling a bunch up there. Appreciate you. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
We've got much more ahead tonight, including what the heir to a Spanish fashion brand is saying just days after being arrested over his father's death. Plus, the new backlash against Starbucks after a marketing campaign gone wrong. We'll tell you where this, it has not been a smashing success, let's call it. That's next. Okay, so Chicago, we're learning today, may start to try to target the parents of kids arrested at those so-called teen takeovers that are happening across the city, including this one here, this beach takeover on the south side. With police, they're trying to run away. Police are like, nope, not so fast. They've charged more than 50 people in this one. And in a separate incident, a judge denied an 18-year-old pretrial release after attempted murder charges. You see the scene where he allegedly hit 5 Chicago police officers with a car. Chicago PD says those officers are doing okay. This kind of thing, like teen takeover, it's not just a Chicago thing. Look at this. This is surveillance video out of New York. Police are looking for more than 30 people who broke into a Scientology office. This is a little different from the teen takeover. This is called a speed run. They've been hitting from coast to coast, and that's specific to Scientology. Maggie Vespa is in Chicago. So let's talk these teen takeovers, because we've seen charges for parents in other cases like school shootings, et cetera. That's rare, but starting to happen. Now you've got Chicago that's like, hey, we're going to maybe start to charge the parents for what their kids are doing if they participate in these, scenes.
Yeah, Hallie, exactly. And we have, in particular, one Chicago alderman, and his ward, by the way, is where those 5 officers were hit over the weekend. He's saying that he thinks parents could be held accountable because the city of Chicago already has a 10 p.m. curfew for minors in place. And he's saying, hey, if you're not even adhering to that curfew, if your kid is out after 10 and then they're arrested at a teen takeover, we're going to hold you accountable by charging you with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And again, this is what he wants to do. It's not in effect yet. That's a Class A misdemeanor in Illinois, punishable by up to 364 days in jail and a $2,500 fine. And again, we're talking about the parents or the guardians here. And you're right. This is something that we're seeing in other cases, kind of in other criminal realms across the country, most notably. And we've covered this in depth on your show. In some cases, school shootings. We covered a historic one in Michigan, another one in Georgia. So this is kind of something of a growing through line that we're seeing where lawmakers are saying, OK, if we can't get the teenagers, the kids, the minors under control, then we're going to start holding parents to some degree accountable. But again, this follows this super chaotic weekend. It's happening across the country, but this was really a microcosm for it, Hallie, over the holiday weekend.
It got a lot of attention, even in D.C. I think it was last week or the week before, some teens at Chipotle with the chair throwing and all that. And the president, lives in D.C., caught his attention. He's weighed in on Chicago. He's slammed the mayor of Chicago. He's slammed the Illinois governor. There is a political overlay to this as well, right, because they're Democrats. What's the status there?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time that the president, of course, is going toe-to-toe with Governor Pritzker or Mayor Johnson. But you're right. If we can pull that post back up from Truth Social, he just posted this today saying, quote, teen takeover in Chicago, 5 officers badly hurt. Mayor and governor are terrible, should call for help. I will point out 5 officers badly hurt. That kind of flies in the face a little bit of what we're hearing from Chicago PD. They say all the officers are in fair condition, and you pointed out should recover just fine. But they definitely were hit by that car. So by no means it was an incredibly serious moment for them, obviously, and they were all hospitalized. But now we have the president less than a year after he sent ICE into Chicago, and we have federal troops marching through this city, which is obviously a huge political flashpoint. Now we've got the president calling out Chicago in particular amid teen takeovers happening across the country, including the Capitol. I should point out my producers sent that statement, sent that post to Mayor Johnson's office. He wrote back calling this violence unacceptable, calling for parental accountability, but he stopped short of addressing the president or basically endorsing this potential ordinance. So kind of walking a bit of a line there.
That's interesting. Maggie Vespa, our thanks to you and to your producer and to your team for covering this one for us. Appreciate you. Also tonight, the heir to the Spanish fashion brand Mango is stepping down a week after he was arrested for allegedly playing a role in the death of his billionaire father. Jonathan Andique told Mango employees today he's temporarily given up his role as VP of the board, but he says the murder allegations are unjust and unfounded. He does say he needs to focus all his energy on proving his innocence. Remember, Jonathan's dad, we covered this when it happened, Isaac Andique, died while hiking in the mountains near Barcelona. This was back in December of 2024. Jonathan was apparently the only witness, according to law enforcement. He says he's innocent. He was not formally charged with anything when he was arrested and released on more than $1 million bail last week. Danielle Hamamjian is joining us now. And what's interesting here, you've got this big, people know Mango. It's like a huge fashion brand, right? Like they are making their support for Jonathan Andique clear today, right?
Very clear, Hallie, and the Mango Fashion Group on its website saying that in internal communication today, the company's chairman and CEO, Tony Ruiz, conveyed to Jonathan his utmost respect, support, and understanding. So, yes, the company is 1,000% behind him, it seems. And the company also saying this in a statement, which I'll read to you. The members of the board of directors unanimously endorsed Mr. Ruiz's remarks and joined the Andique family in expressing their support for Jonathan. They further expressed their full confidence that the legal proceedings will be resolved favorably and trust that this will happen as swiftly as possible. Now, his death, Isaac Andique's death back in December 2024 was initially ruled an accident, but within 6 weeks, his son Jonathan, who had been with him at the time, was named executive VP. Fast forward to last week, he was named a suspect by a Spanish court. The judge said the death may not have been accidental. There was sufficient evidence to suggest, that is, that the death may not have been accidental and that Jonathan Andique played an active and premeditated role. He goes on to say that the father and son's relationship had deteriorated due to Jonathan Andique's obsession with money and that his WhatsApp messages had expressed feelings of hatred, resentment, and thoughts of death and blaming his father for his situation. Now, in a letter today, Jonathan Andique, now 45 years old, disputing this portrayal, absolutely rejecting it, saying that this is a public narrative that has been constructed, that is one-sided and taken out of context. He says it's going to take time to dismantle it, which is why he's stepping aside to focus on his defense. Hallie.
Danielle Hamamdjian, super interesting. Thank you very much for keeping us up to date on that case. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, at least 4 people have been killed, including 2 children, after a deadly crash between a school bus and a train in Belgium. 5 other kids were seriously hurt in this horrific situation. Nobody on the train was injured. Number 2, the state of Alabama says it will appeal after a federal court blocked Bama from using this new Republican-drawn congressional map that would have eliminated one of the state's 2 majority black districts. A panel of those federal judges says the new map intentionally discriminates based on race. And over in South Carolina, the redistricting push is is over for now after a Republican-led Senate just voted against a new map, which would have eliminated that state's only majority black district. Number 3, the former FBI director accused of trying to hurt the president when he posted a picture of seashells online in the numbers 8647 is going to go to trial end of October, middle to the end of October, the 21st. Remember this, James Comey, he put the picture up. It was the shells. He was on the show. You know, he didn't address the case, if you will, but it was 8647. So 86 often used as slang for get rid of. Comey denies any wrongdoing. He has said he wants to get the charges against him dismissed before that trial begins. Number 4, take a look at this new video into us of the moment a ferry in San Francisco slammed into a pier, some of the windows shattering on board. Some passengers were knocked off their feet, but the good news is you can see those windows broken there. Nobody was hurt. Number 5, the head of Starbucks in South Korea is apologizing after the company launched an ad campaign there that some say mocks a massacre. People were smashing these tumblers Starbucks dropped there last week, calling the May 18th release date of these cups their Tank Day. They called them tanks. That happens to be the anniversary of a military crackdown in the country when hundreds of pro-democracy activists were killed back in 1980. Still ahead, a fire that one Florida chief says is the biggest he's ever seen. What we're just learning about the cause. Plus, where the calls from help from ships in the Strait of Hormuz are going, quite literally, Raf Sanchez takes us inside. You're not going to want to miss this in tonight's original. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's all about the Strait of Hormuz. We talked earlier, of course, about those peace talks in peril with at stake the reopening of this critical waterway. You know, it transports a lot of the world's oil. It's still basically paralyzed, essentially holding the whole global economy hostage. Our Raf Sanchez is now bringing us an exclusive look at the human impact inside one of those ships that was caught in the crossfire and a UK naval agency serving as a kind of 911 dispatch when things get chaotic in the Strait.
With negotiations to end the war still stopping and starting, hundreds of oil tankers and other ships remain trapped in the Strait of Hormuz, where both the U.S. and Iran have shown they're prepared to open fire to enforce their dueling blockades.
You gave me clearance to go. You are fighting now. Let me turn back.
That distress call came from this Indian oil tanker, pleading with Iranian forces to stop shooting as it neared the strait. The world learned of this April 18 incident and countless others like it in short reports like this. The UK Maritime Trade Operations Centre is sometimes called the 911 dispatch for ships on the high seas.
What's your position currently, sir?
A hotline for vessels under attack.
The first thing that'll happen is the phone will ring in the corner, and that'll be answered almost immediately by one of the watchkeepers that are in here, 24/7, 365.
Another alert issued today of a tanker attack near Oman. You can see what appears to be a trail of oil leaking in this satellite image. The explosion under investigation.
Recommended routes in and out of the region.
The UK MTO can't order military ships to help, but it's in close touch with the US Navy and other allied forces about what's happening. Its reports are a key source of information for governments and oil markets monitoring the Strait of Hormuz.
Do you have any armed security on board?
Here, as part of a training exercise, watchkeepers simulate taking a call from a ship under attack by speedboats.
The small craft was red in color.
The agency telling us this month there were nearly 900 trapped ships, with 20,000 sailors aboard.
There's an awful amount of stress for these seafarers. They're unsure when they're next going to see their families, when they're getting home.
Until a few weeks ago, Rex Pereira was one of those stranded sailors. Trapped on a small tanker in the Gulf, shooting these videos of war raging around him.
And Iran was just flying opposite where we were. And we could see all the missile launching and the missiles, falling down.
Were you worried the ship was going to get hit?
Yes, we were worried.
Missiles, not the only danger. The ship also had no clean water.
There was no drinking water or fresh water on ship because the freshwater plant on ship machinery was not working.
Pereira has now returned back to India, but thousands of other sailors are hoping a peace deal will reopen the strait soon and get them safely home to shore. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, Doha, Qatar.
NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, Massachusetts drivers for some of these rideshare apps like Uber and Lyft have certified the first statewide union in the country. It's a pretty big deal for the gig economy, and the union says it could help address things like pay and working conditions. The union says it's set to represent nearly 70,000 drivers in Massachusetts. The governor there called it a day that was making history for both the state and the country. Out of our Southern Bureau, new video shows a huge fire over in Miami. Look at this. See those thick black smoke there? The fire apparently quickly spread from a junkyard to several other businesses nearby. More than 100 buildings in the area had to be evacuated, but firefighters say the good news is that nobody was hurt. And out of our Western Bureau, take a look at this. The moment members of the Coast Guard rescued a hiker stranded on a cliff in the Pacific Northwest. Rescuers say a 25-year-old woman was hurt after she fell on this mountain in Oregon. She was airlifted to a hospital and is now recovering at home. Coming up, why Congo's Ebola outbreak is so hard to contain. We're going to take you inside on the ground in Africa, and tonight's breakdown next. Tonight, we're learning the CDC is ramping up its screening push for Ebola here in the United States. We can now report that the acting CDC director sent an internal email obtained by NBC News recruiting CDC staff members to help with screening at airports, basically asking for volunteers. For those interested in participating, the memo went on to say that a deployment could include checking international travelers for signs of illness, taking temperatures, etc. The email had a subject line that included the words urgent request. It was first reported by Bloomberg earlier today. No further comment officially from the CDC. All of it now as the head of the World Health Organization makes his way to the Democratic Republic of Congo. The organization warns the outbreak there is spreading faster than the response, with 220 suspected deaths and 900 suspected cases in the DRC alone. Molly Hunter's getting into why this outbreak in particular is so hard to contain in tonight's breakdown.
Frustrated crowds bang on the windows, shouting at the Ebola response teams arriving in SUVs at the Rampara Health Center. We want our colleague's body. Ebola doesn't exist, some shouted. Misinformation and skepticism in science is widespread here. In recent days, isolation tents were set on fire, healthcare facilities attacked by friends and relatives and local militias. During the attacks, some infected patients fled, further complicating the effort to contain the spread of Ebola across Ituri province, the epicenter in the northeast corner of the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is the DRC's 17th Ebola outbreak in the last 50 years, but even with that history, the rising death toll sows mistrust. Of the 5 million people living here, a quarter already require humanitarian assistance, and 1 in 5 already internally displaced due to decades of ethnic conflict on the eastern border with Uganda and Rwanda. People are really traumatized by the war, the insecurity, and now the disease, a local church leader tells us, asking for anonymity for fear of retaliation. We hope aid arrives quickly, he says, because if Ebola enters one of the many refugee camps, it will be a catastrophe. Humanitarian aid is arriving, but not quickly enough, according to organizations on the ground. The global response still ramping up. Volunteers are on the front line in hazmat suits, supervising safe burial practices, a dangerous transmission point, experts say, and Congolese Red Cross workers going door to door, sharing information about how Ebola is spread.
We need to ensure a coordinated approach to this, filling the gaps, making sure that the needs are covered, but we cannot also forget the underlying conditions that were already here.
Underlying conditions that make this rare strain of Ebola harder to contain than previous outbreaks. The WHO's Director General is on his way to the DRC today with a stark warning to African leaders. At the moment, Dr. Tedros said, the epidemic is outpacing us. Unlike the more common Zaire strain, there's no treatment, no vaccine, and it comes at a moment when international investment in global health, including from the United States, is significantly down.
For the health sector in 2025, there was a 70% decrease into the international assistance.
Health officials like the WHO's Dr. Anne Ancia, who works in the DRC, says they're playing catch-up. The virus likely circulated for weeks before the outbreak was declared.
We don't yet know the full extent of the outbreak. And now it is very difficult. We're running behind the outbreak. We're not yet, trying to control it.
Still working to break the chain of transmission, a massive challenge in an already unstable region. Molly Hunter, NBC News.
Our thanks to Molly for that reporting. We've got a lot more ahead tonight, including the team wearing the red, white, and blue in the World Cup just out. The roster just released, and guess who was there to catch it all live as it was happening? Stephanie Goss. Girl, what you got?
Yeah. Lucky me. 26 players. They were just named. Fresh off of being named, they got on a plane and went straight to Atlanta to start practicing. Their first game is June 12th. The big question for them is how far can they ride the wave of home field advantage? Coming up.
Big moments today. Big for soccer fans, because we met the squad that's going to represent the U.S. here in the U.S. for the World Cup in just the last few hours in New York. Big reveal featuring the little smoke cannons or whatever as people are coming out. Here's the big star, Christian Pulisic. Just a couple weeks from now, the U.S. is going to play one of its 3 guaranteed games in this World Cup out in L.A. They got to make it out of this group with Paraguay, Australia, Turkey to get to the knockout round. Remember, though, the U.S. doesn't typically make it very far, even if it gets to the World Cup. They finished third once back when, who topped the Billboard charts when it happened? Nobody, because the Billboard charts didn't even exist that long ago. 1930, that's how long ago it was. You see there, too, nearly half the time, the U.S. hasn't even qualified for the Cup. Stephanie Goss is in New York after the roster reveal. I'm not trying to be a bummer. I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm merely presenting the facts in context. It's all very exciting. Well, and if you're not a soccer fan, Steph, what do we need to know?
Okay, so the first thing you need to know about the World Cup is their slogan, which is never chase reality. So what does that mean, Hallie? Chase the dream.
Chase the dream.
And that is the hope for Team USA.
Who bought that scarf?
Defy expectations that well, my crack producers here on the ground scored this for me. I'm nearly certain I don't get to keep it. But for the moment, it's mine. And that's the hope. Look, the hope is that Team USA is going to defy expectations. They're going to use this opportunity to have home field advantage. And you're going to have Christian Pulisic and Tyler Adams and their striker, Folarin Balogun, whose name I am going to get down for certain by the time this all starts. And if they can dig deep and play really well, not only are they going to get out of the group, maybe they get into that single elimination round, 16-8, I don't know, maybe even quarterfinals, Hallie.
It's just exciting. I mean, it really is, because, as a football fan, like NFL-wise, I'm psyched to get into the soccer piece of it, because this is massive, Steph, right? I mean, it's huge, it's global, the tickets are crazy, but also people want them, right?
Yeah, they do. But it's difficult to get here. We're in North America. The vast majority of people around the world who want to come and see a game have to cross a really big ocean and pay a lot of money for that ticket, only to get here with the tickets really expensive. We had a chance to talk to some fans today about those prices and their hopes that maybe some of them come down. Listen to this.
I think it probably says a little bit more about FIFA than it does for the cities. I mean, I think the cities were kind of in a tough spot to have to sort of pay for everything themselves. I feel like FIFA could have maybe chipped in and helped the fans out.
I think the prices are going to go down in the next few weeks because I know that they're going to want to make sure that it's full stadiums and have as vibrant of an atmosphere as possible. So yeah, I'm going to wait a few weeks and then hopefully the prices will go down and I'll get the tickets.
So, I mean, listen, football fans, soccer fans, football everywhere else in the world are determined. They will end up going to these games, and the excitement is going to just start to pick up as things start happening, Hallie.
We're starting a new segment I've decided on the show called What to Expect When You're Expecting the World Cup. So what is the number one thing you are the most excited about? What are you most looking forward to?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I am going to Mexico City for the very first game of the World Cup. Mexico is playing South Africa. And, I mean, that country is going to lose its mind, that the World Cup is there, that it's being played in Mexico City, that first game. The excitement is going to be enormous, and there is going to be such pride in Mexico that it's all starting there. So I cannot wait to see it.
Yes, I'm so excited for you. Steph, bring the scarf, put it on the HJN tab. We got you, okay? We got scarf money.
I look
so
good in this
that's
scarf,
yours.
too.
Charge it to Jill.
Yes.
Thanks, girl. Appreciate you. You look good. We'll see you in Mexico City. Stephanie Goss.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. That does it for us for this hour. Thank you, as always, for watching. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air with the new details in a deadly chemical implosion at an industrial plant in Washington state. What we know about how a tank ruptured, burning multiple people and killing at least one. Plus, nearly 30 million people are on high alert for flash flood, with even more rain on the way. Some of the new risks as people try to clean up from devastating tornadoes, and the forecast for what's ahead. Plus, why Iran just accused the U.S. of blowing up a ceasefire, literally, after new strikes near the Strait of Hormuz. We're live from the region. And President Trump's new Texas-sized test. We're just a couple of hours away from polls closing in a key runoff that could give us the next big clue about how much power the president wields over the GOP. And the new way some folks want to crack down on those so-called teen takeovers after this scene in Chicago, why some kids' parents may end up in hot water, too. That's coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we're starting with some of the breaking news out of Washington state tonight. Officials say at least one person has been killed after an implosion at a manufacturing plant. Here's what we know so far. Police and the fire department say a chemical tank that's used to make paper ruptured earlier today. A local hospital says 9 people came in hurt. One of those people died. You can see it happen here on the border of Washington state and Oregon. Take a listen to some of the back and forth between first responders as those first calls were coming in from this plant.
3401 Industrial Way at Nippon for hazmat burn. 3401 Industrial Way, Control 1 clear 721.
Control 1, Chief A1, will you give me the detail?
Chief A1, we're reporting a tank imploded. It looks like there's 3 people with chemical burns and 1 subject is missing.
Let's get right to Steve Patterson. Steve, what else do we know about this? How did this happen?
As you heard, there at least one subject deceased. One person the hospital confirms has died, but you know, the officials on scene reported fatalities and multiple people missing. So this tragedy could get a whole lot worse before this is all wrapped up. Apparently this happened at about 7:30 this morning, right on the border, as you mentioned, of Washington and Oregon, about 45 miles, I should say, north of Portland at this packaging plant. They apparently use these sort of high volume chemicals, this one called white liquor, to sort of turn wood chips into pulp, which is part of the process there. Uses a lot of of pressure, uses a lot of heat, of course, very volatile situation. We don't know if this was accidental, if somebody is at fault, but we know that an implosion occurred, right? So a rupture that sort of brings everything in, causes sort of this mass destruction in that area, and unfortunately led to at least one fatality, but of course maybe more. Authorities on scene. We've been getting updates throughout the day. We should expect another one in just a few hours, and we should learn a whole lot more about it. But a tragic scene so far. Hallie.
Just devastating for the folks in the Pacific Northwest, and sort of strangely, it is not even the only sort of toxic chemical tank that we've been tracking in the headlines over the last day or so. You're obviously on the scene of that incident in Southern California, this leak. Apparently, there was concerns about a potentially catastrophic explosion. They evacuated thousands of people. Sounds like the explosion risk has largely gone away, but they're still concerned about some other stuff, right? People aren't able to go home yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been reporting on a town called Garden Grove for the past few days, and we're finally here. The evacuation zone has shrunk so much that we're actually reporting from the town. I can show you back to where we think this is. It's about a mile down the road. If I point you directly that way, that tank would be there. The tank is still unstable, and that's the really big problem. It could be flammable. It could still explode, Hallie. We should say that. We're not out of the woods in that sense yet. It's just the volume. We got a truck going by. The volume, the magnitude of that explosion would be far less than a few days ago. It's because they found a rupture in that tank. Sounds bad. It's actually really good because it alleviated all the pressure and eliminated the possibility of what's called a Blevy explosion, or an explosion using sort of a high pressure chemical explosion, which would have been disastrous. It was the reason why 50,000 people were evacuated here in the first place, and the radius was huge. Would have been massive. Now a lot smaller, but still a very dangerous situation. It's the reason why 16,000 people still can't come back to their homes. No timeline on when that'll end, but officials say they're working on it. Hallie?
Steve Patterson live for us there in Southern California. Steve, thank you very much for being there and for keeping us up to date. Appreciate that. Also tonight, you've got Iran accusing the U.S. of blowing up a ceasefire, literally, after American strikes near the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Defense Department says those strikes were defensive. They were self-defense, that they targeted missile launchers and Iranian boats trying to lay down mines near the strait. But Iran says the attack undermines the negotiations happening right now to end the war. Let's get to the region with Matt Bradley live for us in Tel Aviv. And already, Matt, there were questions about how real these negotiations were and the kinds of progress towards peace talks, considering some of these big sticking points that seem unresolved. Now you've got this. The Iranians aren't happy. You know, how do they get back on track for these negotiations?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're talking about those big sticking points, the last we actually heard about the substance of these negotiations came from Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and he said that the negotiations could take a couple more days, and he said that they were still going over some of those details that you just mentioned. That's a pretty big shift from what we heard before the weekend and over the weekend from the Trump administration, when they were saying that basically a deal was imminent and we could hear about it within the next couple of hours. Well, those hours came and went, and we haven't seen this deal. And instead, we saw renewed American strikes on Iranian targets, which has elicited a chorus of outrage from the Iranians, you know, basically saying that the U.S. had broken with the deal and threatening to retaliate. But we haven't seen that Iranian retaliation. Amazingly, it looks as though this ceasefire is still intact, despite what the Iranians consider to be a very, very grave violation. Whether or not that those violations actually lead to a breakdown of the ceasefire, it looks as though they won't. We've seen in the past, just a couple of weeks ago, a similar set of events where the U.S. attacked Iran around the same area in southern Iran. The Iranians got angry, and they mostly confined their striking back to targets in the Gulf states, American allies, and the ceasefire stayed intact. As you mentioned, though, the real threat could be to these ongoing negotiations. But again, it looks as though the Iranians are sticking to the negotiations as well, despite what is clearly U.S. violations, even though the U.S. did say that they were self-defensive in nature. So everything, as always, and has been for the past couple of months, is hanging on by a thread. But it looks as though progress could still be made and there could still be a deal. The question is, what kind of deal is this going to be? And is it going to be the kind of thing that President Trump is going to be able to boast about as a victory? We just saw over the past couple of days reports that the president had gone to all of those who were participating in these negotiations, including people who were not really the party to the negotiations, and insisted that they sign on to the Abraham Accords, normalizing relations with Israel. That looks like a pretty big shot in the dark, a Hail Mary pass just before the president has been struggling with these deals.
Matt Bradley live for us there in Tel Aviv tonight. Matt, thank you for that reporting. President Trump, for his part, here in Washington, heading up to Walter Reed today, the hospital in D.C. or around D.C. to get a checkup. It's his third doctor's visit since his second term started about a year and change ago. You see him there on his way to Walter Reed earlier for what he called his regular 6-month checkup. Afterwards online saying things looked perfect. There's been a lot of talk, of course, about his health. You think about, for example, some of those pictures that we've seen fairly persistently of the bruises on his hands, sometimes covered up with makeup, as you can see here. The White House says that's from shaking hands. And then there's the, what some see as dozing off at cabinet meetings. The president has said he's sort of concentrating or resting his eyes. Let me get to Monica Alba at the White House now. And remember, he turns 80 3 weeks from now. These questions are relevant for any president, of course. And in the interest of transparency, people want to know how he's doing.
Absolutely, Hallie. And remember that he was the oldest ever president to be inaugurated. And so these persistent questions would apply to anybody of this age, and certainly did to the last octogenarian president, which was former President Joe Biden. But when we're talking about President Trump, he does say today that this is going to be kind of a regular thing every 6 months or so. That's what he called it, his 6-month physical. He has been to Walter Reed a couple of times. When he went last October, we didn't get a complete picture about what had actually happened until afterwards, when it was the president who revealed that there had been a CAT scan and then the actual MRI imaging and question of what actually he had received, he said was one thing at one point and then later clarified it. And so today we're still wondering whether that's exactly what he did or whether there were additional tests. The White House says we can get some of those answers we should expect in the next 24 hours or so to get a sense of what happened today. But he says that, yes, everything so far went perfectly.
And in just the last hour, too, he posted online, taking aim at some of these states that have tried to ban prediction markets, saying that's not going to happen, that only the feds can set the rules. I am fascinated by all things prediction market, the regulations, when you look at sort of the things that people are able to bet on here. Is there an appetite for federal regulation of this anytime soon? Because it's pretty thorny. There's some real questions around that.
Yeah, and the president himself has said things like, well, I guess these kinds of prediction markets mean that the whole world is a casino and that he doesn't totally like it and he's not sure if he's in favor of it. But at the same time, he has some pretty deep family ties to these kinds of markets. When you talk about Donald Trump Jr., for instance, he's a strategic advisor for Polymarket. And so you do have that juxtaposition. But the president today on social media, he did want to basically say that it was critically important for these kinds of businesses to continue operating the way they are operating without extra regulation, saying that that is only something that there can be a larger approach to from the federal government after other things occur. But he's basically saying he doesn't want certain restrictions put on this, instead saying that he would like for these markets to be maintained and to thrive. And under his leadership, he says they are setting their own, quote, rules of the road. Hallie.
Monica Alba, thank you very much. Plenty to watch tonight from your post on the North Lawn. Thanks. To Texas now, where tonight we're going to get the next big sign of just how much the president's opinion matters to voters on the Republican Party. He wants Ken Paxton to win the Republican runoff in that state's Senate race instead of sitting Senator John Cornyn. And it's super interesting because people are like, okay, he's not backing the incumbent. He's backing this other person, Paxton, who some people in party leadership think is the wrong choice. They're worried that Paxton can't actually beat the Democrat in this race, James Talarico. He won the Democratic primary back in March. And if Democrats want to take back the Senate, they're going to need to win tough races like this one. But caveat, grain of salt. We're talking about Texas, right? A state that has not elected a Democrat to statewide office since Ace of Base and The Sign were on the Billboard's Top 100. Democrats hope they will see a sign that they could maybe come back in this state. But some Republicans say, hey, they're not sure Paxton can actually do it, can actually get him over the finish line. Listen to this.
Paxton is a fighter, and I've always liked Paxton.
And I know the president endorsed Ken Paxton, but I have real concerns about the ability of Republicans to win in November in Texas. I think we're faced with the biggest challenge we've probably had in decades.
Let me bring in our man at the big board, Steve Kornacki. First and most important question, can you recite the lyrics to The Sign by Ace of Base?
In 94, I was listening to music from 64, so it can't be too helpful.
I'm obsessed with you. I'm telling you. All right, so fine. Let's talk about some of the numbers that I know that you're engaged in, which is all of this as relates to Cornyn and Paxton. You've got the Kornacki cam going tonight. Where's the place you're going to be looking most closely? Because John Cornyn's really in the fight of his political life.
Yeah, actually, if there's one county that I really want to see, it's going to be this one, Harris County. Biggest one in the state. Maybe no surprise I pick it. Probably 10% of the vote's going to come out of here. So it's gigantic, but also this is very contested. Cornyn and Paxton, back in that preliminary in March, when Cornyn actually finished in first, slightly ahead of Paxton statewide, that's what it looked like in Harris. Cornyn finished slightly ahead of Paxton in the state's biggest county, but the wild card is the third candidate back in that preliminary, Congressman Wesley Hunt, is from Harris County. He got a big chunk of the vote, almost a quarter of the vote in Harris County. Obviously, he's out of the race now. And when Donald Trump made that endorsement of Paxton last week, Wesley Hunt came off the sidelines, too. He said, if Trump's for him, I'm for him, too. He endorsed Paxton. So show me what happens in Harris County, where Cornyn had a slight edge with a big chunk of the vote going to a third candidate who's now gotten behind Paxton. I think Harris is going to be must-win for Cornyn tonight. But if that Trump endorsement's had the effect, for that matter, if the Wesley Hunt endorsement has had an effect here, then you could see Paxton zooming ahead here. And with all of those votes in Harris County, that alone could be decisive.
Steve, I've always said that life is demanding without understanding. And if you're a Democrat who wants to understand any tea leaves for November, is there any kind of signal that we should watch for tonight that could give us a little clue as to what could happen with the Senate race when the midterms actually happen?
Yeah, look, I think the whole thing really is that the message, and you heard it there and you were talking about it, the message from Cornyn is all about electability in this race. He's telling Republicans, I'm the one who can win. Paxton's the one who's going to put this seat in danger here. And I think in some ways you can read the results tonight as a referendum on the confidence of the Republican Party here in Texas. If Paxton's winning tonight and he's winning big, I think it's a statement from the Republican Party. They believe he's electable. Yeah. They believe he can win. If he wins tonight and it's a squeaker, despite the Trump endorsement, I think it suggests that there were still some pretty broad reservations about Paxton. And obviously, if Cornyn ever won, then that argument he made about electability has resonated with me.
Yeah. Super, super interesting, Steve. Let's get you into the light where you belong. Tell people how they can see you tonight if they want to watch.
We got, this is all, it's on my Twitter page, but you can also look at this, NBCnews.com. Go there, 8 o'clock. Every county that comes in, as it comes in, we're going to give you the results, all the results, and nothing but the results.
Steve, I'm sending you my Ace of Base CD. It's going to be amazing, and I can't wait until you come to D.C. We can talk about it for all the other midterm primaries we're doing in June. I appreciate you. It's going to be a big night. We're going to be watching.
Thanks, Hallie.
Talk to you. Also tonight, we're learning in just the last couple of hours. This is super interesting here that police have arrested 2 people in Argentina, allegedly connected to a series of burglaries at several athletes' homes in the U.S. Look, these are some of the arrests on video here. Argentinian police haven't said specifically where these burglaries happen, but remember, it comes after the DOJ charged several suspects involved in a series of break-ins in 2024. We've reported on this extensively over the years, right? These big names, or at least these types of robberies. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Joe Burrow. They had their houses broken into within months of each other while they were away, while they were playing, etc. Let me bring in Jesse Kerr. She's watching this one for us. To be careful and to be clear here, Jesse, it's not like we can link for sure those athletes that we just had up on the screen with these arrests in Argentina, but it is a fascinating, potential new subplot in all of this, or potential new twist.
Absolutely, Hallie. And for what it's worth, our team has reached out to the Department of Justice here in the United States, where these charges had come from last year. And the DOJ says it's not going to be commenting on recent arrests or any potential pending extradition. So at this point, it's unclear to be certain if these arrests are connected with those incidents you just talked about. But what we know from Argentinian police is they say these are people who were involved in incidents in the United States in which valuables worth around $2 million were taken. And the DOJ, when it announced the charges in those incidents involving Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Bobby Portis and others, they talked about more than $2 million worth of valuables having been taken. So, again, not a definitive connection there, but certainly seems to be at least the same general realm of issue. And this is something that's been getting a lot of attention over the last couple of years. Some people had been arrested when those charges, around the time when those charges were announced last year, but it's been more than a year now that we've been waiting to see if there would be any developments, and potentially we're looking at some progress here right now. But this is, of course, something that major sports leagues in this country have warned their athletes about, the possibility of having a burglary occur at their home. And you mentioned this being at times when people were in the middle of a game or out of town. So these are people who, a lot of the times, we know about their homes. Their homes sometimes are featured in the media. We know where they're going to be and when they're going to be in a lot of situations because, of course, they have games that are scheduled. So, it's a very vulnerable situation to be in, and something that has been high profile in the last couple of years.
You're hitting on something that I think is so important, Jesse, which is it's sort of unusual that you have somebody who is well known, who's known to be making a lot of money, who's known to be living in a certain location, right, whatever city that they play for, and where you know their schedule. You know that if, like, whatever team is playing some away game, that they're not going to be home. And that's what made these athletes, in many ways, so particularly vulnerable to these kinds of crimes, right?
Yeah, spot on. These are people who you know to the minute where they're going to be. I mean, we literally know when a kickoff is. We know when a tip-off is. And as long as someone's not injured and not traveling with their team, you know where they're going to be. You know exactly where they're going to be. You know the address they're going to be at. And again, when we had covered these stories in the past, even Patrick Mahomes, he had toured around his house in at least one video series. So, a lot of the times it's no secret where these people live if you do a little digging, and that's something that also can add to that vulnerability. And even if this is someone who has their own security team, that may not necessarily make you completely impervious to something like this happening.
Jesse Kerr, super interesting. Thank you very much for joining us on that. Thank you. To a new wave now of lunar missions. And, we are not prone to exaggeration on this show, but this is huge. This is so interesting because it could really reimagine space travel as we know it with this big announcement from NASA today. They want to establish this home base for Artemis astronauts on the moon. This first ever lunar outpost. That's what they're calling it. This isn't even the final destination. They're really doing this to try to, make a stopover to get people to Mars. They're rolling this out in 3 phases starting later next year when they're going to kick things off with a series of robotic missions. By 2029, that's only 3 years from now, NASA says it'll have built that base on the moon. By 2032, astronauts living and working on the moon could become a reality.
So for those waiting patiently, the grand return is close at hand, and we will not slow down. We are moving with the competence and the purpose to accomplish the missions that only NASA is capable of achieving. And we are really just getting started.
Tom Costello had to get in on this one. He is joining us now here. This is this is Star Trek stuff come to life.
I thought what was impressive today is that the timeline is so aggressive.
It's like 5 minutes from now, basically.
Well, they're starting this year. I mean, really.
2032, Tom, I'm going to still be in my,
You'll still be sitting there.
Young 30s. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes, you will. But the bottom line here is that they are going to start these robotic missions this year, 25 robotic missions in phase 1, then they go to phase 2, then they go to phase 3. So what does a lunar base look like? It's a permanent presence. Look at that. It's a permanent presence on the moon. Hundreds of square miles, you guys. We're not talking about just that. Hundreds of square miles, complete with a solar power station, a nuclear power station. And then what's the ultimate goal here? Well, the ultimate goal really is to go to Mars. But listen, they've targeted an area which is near the South Pole. And as you and I have discussed before, they believe that there is water ice there. Critical because that could be used for multiple things, including potentially drinking water, rocket fuel, you name it. Take a listen to one of the NASA deputy administrators about what they're hoping the NASA presence, the permanent astronaut presence, looks like.
With Moonbase, Artemis astronauts will stay longer, explore farther, and conduct the kinds of science that advances exploration itself, understanding how humans operate off-world, how we build infrastructure, and how we prepare for Mars.
So Artemis 4, remember we just had Artemis 2, loop around the moon and come back, right? So now Artemis 4, not 3, 4 will land on the moon potentially in 2028. I wouldn't be surprised if that slides a bit, but that's the idea, right? And then in the meantime, building out this lunar base, I should say, and that permanent presence in 2032. But get this, Hallie Jackson. The Chinese, as you know, are targeting the exact same spot. And so now Artemis today, for the first time, laid out that they want to create parameters, I should say, to the base right? They want to mark it out with lasers. So this is our territory kind of thing. Boy,
so we're going to get into a turf war on the moon? Is that where this is heading?
Right? This sounds almost like that Apple series, right? But the bottom line here is that they want to create territory that is definitely America's territory on the moon. We'll see how that flies.
How long can they stay up there? In other words, if you're Tom Costello, the astronaut, not ruling that out, and you want to go live and work on the moon in 2032 when this thing opens, are you staying up there indefinitely? Is this like is this a year? Like, how long are those missions?
Probably to start with, weeks and then extend it out to months. But here's the biggest problem they've got. There are significant risks to being on the moon. For example, the radiation exposure alone could kill you. That is really serious. They've got to figure out how they get around that.
Also, the gravity thing.
There ain't none. Right? Is that what you mean? They're going to float away?
Yeah, like they got to have moon. I mean, I don't, Tom, I don't know how
there's
that
not
works,
much.
But there's,
Well, they got enough that it will, they will be able to drill down there. But lastly, one more point here, and that is that they've got to figure out how they shield themselves from the micrometeorites. I mean, it rains micrometeorites. One of those hits you on the head and you're a goner.
But when you say micrometeorites, you're not saying, it's not dust. It's like,
it's like little micro rocks that are coming and pelting the moon constantly. And when the Artemis crew was going around the moon, they shot video of these little micrometeorites constantly hitting the surface of the moon.
But end goal here is not just that they're going to have a moon base and they're going to live on that and shield themselves from these little, space rocks that are pelting them. It's almost like if you're flying from here to, around halfway around the world, you got to do a layover. It's almost a layover on the way to Mars,
right? Well, that's right, because if you want to go to Mars, the idea is you use that as a foothold, because just getting to Mars, the biggest loss of energy, if you will, rocket fuel, is just escaping the Earth's gravitational pull. So now they are talking about using nuclear power on the moon and nuclear power in rockets taking humans to Mars.
It's a new frontier.
It's pretty cool.
Tom Costello.
I'm going to have a lot to talk about for the next few years.
Consider yourself booked and busy on this show till 2033, my friend. Thank you. Right. And if you are watching and you can't get enough of it either, I'm telling you, Gotti Schwartz, guess what? He's going one-on-one with the NASA administrator, Jarek Isaacman, tonight. You know Gotti's going to get into it. That's 8 o'clock right here on NBC News Now. Also tonight, you've got nearly 30 million people across the South facing the threat of major flooding again tonight after days of heavy rain. Look at the scenes in Mississippi. At least one person has been killed after her car was swept away by water. In Texas and North Carolina, some yards are turning into what look like lakes. And it's not just rain. You've got a lot of wind ripping up the East Coast. Here's a water spout on the coast of Florida there, Miramar Beach, sending umbrellas flying. Look at that, people. That's so dangerous. That's scary. People are running to try to get to safety. Overnight, a reported tornado battered parts of Alabama, just one of many places expecting more storms. Let's bring in Aaron Gilchrist, who's out there in Atlanta for us tonight.
Well, Hallie, we are looking at exactly what we've been seeing in different parts of the South for days on end now. We've had at least a week of days with these rain showers that come through. Sometimes they're heavier than others, and they really have been putting people in a tough place. You can maybe see some of the traffic behind me here in Atlanta, where we know folks who've been on this interstate have had to deal with stopped traffic because there's been flooding on the highway there. We've seen flooding in Mississippi, in Alabama, and other places as well during these days of storms that have been rolling through. You talked about some of the tornadoes that folks have had to deal with in Alabama in particular yesterday, and we know that in this area we've seen power outages, we've seen trees that have come down on houses, largely because we know that the ground has been so saturated with all the moisture that's rolled through here over the last several days. I want you to hear from a homeowner we spoke to who has a tree on top of his house, punched a hole in his roof while he was at home. Listen.
We're sitting in the house. We heard woke up the vibration, heard the boom, obviously, of the tree coming in. But like I said, it sounded more like an explosion. And we came upstairs to see what was going on to the tree in the house. Two thoughts: get my family somewhere safe. Everything else, even to the point of the house, is replaceable.
Now, the good thing for that homeowner is that he was able to get a tarp on his roof. At least he's going to be able to salvage some of the things inside his home. But he knows that the rain that we're seeing today is not the end of it. We are going to see more storms roll through parts of the South. Maybe we'll see thunder and lightning. Perhaps it'll just be a lot of heavy rain, which for a lot of folks is going to be bad enough. Hallie?
Aaron Gilchrist out in it. Thank you very much. Coming up here on the show, more to get to, including the race to rescue people trapped in a flooded cave for a week. We've got that video. Plus, how nearly 100 drones ended up falling out of the sky in Australia. Next. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, at least 4 people have been killed, including 2 children, after a deadly crash between a school bus and a train in Belgium. 5 other children were seriously hurt in the horrific crash. Nobody on the train was injured. Number 2, rescuers in Laos are scrambling to save 7 people trapped inside a cave. They've been there for 7 days. Officials say the locals went inside looking for gold. Heavy rain triggered flash flooding in Southeast Asia there, blocking the exit. One rescue team leader says the effort to get through the cave is like crawling through a drinking straw. We're keeping an eye on this story. Number 3, the Trump administration is proposing all federal employees sign non-disclosure agreements, supposedly, as part of a crackdown to stop leaks to the media. A draft notice on this, as reported by the Washington Post, says workers could face civil and criminal penalties if they break it. Each agency will apparently also have discretion about using NDAs. A 30-day public comment period gets rolling later this week. Number 4, take a look at some of the new video into us of the moment a ferry in San Francisco slammed into a pier. Some of the windows on board shattered. Passengers knocked to their feet, but nobody was seriously hurt. Number 5, look at this. Dozens of drones falling out of the sky in Australia. Part of a light show last night in Sydney. Not the kind of show that they wanted to see. Technical difficulties are to blame, according to organizers. They say it was an anomaly. Still, they're putting future shows on pause until they get this fixed. Back here in the U.S., lawmakers in Chicago may target the parents of kids arrested at these so-called teen takeovers that are happening across that city and beyond. Like this one, video of a beach takeover on the south side. Police were tackling some of the teens who tried to run away. Police charged more than 50 people there. In a separate incident, a judge denied an 18-year-old pretrial release after attempted murder charges. This is the scene where he allegedly hit 5 Chicago police officers with a car. Chicago PD says those officers are now doing okay. Maggie Vespa is in Chicago for us. So let's talk these teen takeovers, because we've seen charges for parents in other cases like school shootings, et cetera. That's rare, but starting to happen. Now you've got Chicago that's like, hey, we're going to maybe start to charge the parents for what their kids are doing if they participate in these, scenes.
Yeah, Hallie, exactly. And we have, in particular, one Chicago alderman, and his ward, by the way, is where those 5 officers were hit over the weekend. He's saying that he thinks parents could be held accountable because the city of Chicago already has a 10 p.m. curfew for minors in place. And he's saying, hey, if you're not even adhering to that curfew, if your kid is out after 10 and then they're arrested at a teen takeover, we're going to hold you accountable by charging you with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And again, this is what he wants to do. It's not in effect yet. That's a Class A misdemeanor in Illinois, punishable by up to 364 days in jail and a $2,500 fine. And again, we're talking about the parents or the guardians here. And you're right. This is something that we're seeing in other cases, kind of in other criminal realms across the country, most notably. And we've covered this in depth on your show. In some cases, school shootings. We covered a historic one in Michigan, another one in Georgia. So this is kind of something of a growing through line that we're seeing where lawmakers are saying, OK, if we can't get the teenagers, the kids, the minors under control, then we're going to start holding parents to some degree accountable. But again, this follows this super chaotic weekend. It's happening across the country, but this was really a microcosm for it, Hallie, over the holiday weekend.
It got a lot of attention, even in D.C. I think it was last week or the week before, some teens at Chipotle with the chair throwing and all that. And the president, lives in D.C., caught his attention. He's weighed in on Chicago. He's slammed the mayor of Chicago. He's slammed the Illinois governor. There is a political overlay to this as well, right, because they're Democrats. What's the status there?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time that the president, of course, is going toe-to-toe with Governor Pritzker or Mayor Johnson. But you're right. If we can pull that post back up from Truth Social, he just posted this today saying, quote, teen takeover in Chicago, 5 officers badly hurt. Mayor and governor are terrible, should call for help. I will point out 5 officers badly hurt. That kind of flies in the face a little bit of what we're hearing from Chicago PD. They say all the officers are in fair condition, and you pointed out should recover just fine. But they definitely were hit by that car. So by no means it was an incredibly serious moment for them, obviously, and they were all hospitalized. But now we have the president less than a year after he sent ICE into Chicago, and we have federal troops marching through this city, which is obviously a huge political flashpoint. Now we've got the president calling out Chicago in particular mid-teen takeovers happening across the country, including the Capitol. I should point out my producers sent that statement, sent that post to Mayor Johnson's office. He wrote back calling this violence unacceptable, calling for parental accountability, but he stopped short of addressing the president or basically endorsing this potential ordinance. So kind of walking a bit of a line there.
That's interesting. Maggie Vespa, our thanks to you and to your producer and to your team for covering this one for us. Appreciate you. Also tonight, the heir to the Spanish fashion brand Mango is stepping down a week after he was arrested for allegedly playing a role in the death of his billionaire father. Jonathan Andique told Mango employees today he's temporarily given up his role as VP of the board, but he says the murder allegations are unjust and unfounded. He does say he needs to focus all his energy on proving his innocence. Remember, Jonathan's dad, we covered this when it happened, Isaac Andique, died while hiking in the mountains near Barcelona. This was back in December of 2024. Jonathan was apparently the only witness, according to law enforcement. He says he's innocent. He was not formally charged with anything when he was arrested and released on more than $1 million bail last week. Danielle Hamamjian is joining us now. And what's interesting here, you've got this big, I mean, people know Mango. It's like a huge fashion brand, right? Like, they are making their support for Jonathan Andique clear today, right?
Very clear, Hallie, and the Mango Fashion Group on its website saying that in internal communication today, the company's chairman and CEO, Tony Ruiz, conveyed to Jonathan his utmost respect, support, and understanding. So, yes, the company is 1,000% behind him, it seems. And the company also saying this in a statement, which I'll read to you. The members of the board of directors unanimously endorsed Mr. Ruiz's remarks and joined the Andique family in expressing their support for Jonathan. They further expressed their full confidence that the legal proceedings will be resolved favorably and trust that this will happen as swiftly as possible. Now, his death, Isaac Andique's death back in December 2024 was initially ruled an accident, but within 6 weeks, his son Jonathan, who had been with him at the time, was named executive VP. Fast forward to last week, he was named a suspect by a Spanish court. The judge said the death may not have been accidental. There was sufficient evidence to suggest, that is, that the death may not have been accidental and that Jonathan Andique played an active and premeditated role. He goes on to say that the father and son's relationship had deteriorated due to Jonathan Andique's obsession with money and that his WhatsApp messages had expressed feelings of hatred, resentment, and thoughts of death and blaming his father for his situation. Now, in a letter today, Jonathan Andique, now 45 years old, disputing this portrayal, absolutely rejecting it, saying that this is a public narrative that has been constructed, that is one-sided and taken out of context. He says it's going to take time to dismantle it, which is why he's stepping aside to focus on his defense, Hallie.
Danielle Hamamjian, super interesting. Thank you very much for keeping us up to date on that case. Still ahead, a fire that one Florida chief says is the biggest he's ever seen. What we're just learning about the cause. Plus, where the calls from help from ships in the Strait of Hormuz are going, quite literally, Raf Sanchez takes us inside. You're not going to want to miss this in tonight's original. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's all about the Strait of Hormuz. We talked earlier, of course, about those peace talks in peril with at stake the reopening of this critical waterway. You know, it transports a lot of the world's oil. It's still basically paralyzed, essentially holding the whole global economy hostage. Our Raf Sanchez is now bringing us an exclusive look at the human impact inside one of those ships that was caught in the crossfire and a UK naval agency serving as a kind of 911 dispatch when things get chaotic in the Strait.
With negotiations to end the war still stopping and starting, hundreds of oil tankers and other ships remain trapped in the Strait of Hormuz, where both the U.S. and Iran have shown they're prepared to open fire to enforce their dueling blockades.
Navy, motor tanker Sanmar Herald, you gave me clearance to go. You are fighting now. Let me turn back.
That distress call came from this Indian oil tanker, pleading with Iranian forces to stop shooting as it neared the strait. The world learned of this April 18 incident and countless others like it in short reports like this. The UK Maritime Trade Operations Centre is sometimes called the 911 dispatch for ships on the high seas.
What's your position currently, sir?
A hotline for vessels under attack.
The first thing that will happen is the phone will ring in the corner, and that will be answered almost immediately by one of the watchkeepers that are in here 24/7, 365.
Another alert issued today of a tanker attack near Oman. You can see what appears to be a trail of oil leaking in this satellite image. The explosion under investigation.
Recommended routes in and out of the region.
The UK MTO can't order military ships to help, but it's in close touch with the US Navy and other allied forces about what's happening. Its reports are a key source of information for governments and oil markets monitoring the Strait of Hormuz.
Do you have any armed security on board?
Here, as part of a training exercise, watchkeepers simulate taking a call from a ship under attack by speedboats.
The small craft was red in colour.
The agency telling us this month there were nearly 900 trapped ships, with 20,000 sailors aboard.
There's an awful amount of stress for these seafarers. They're unsure when they're next going to see their families, when they're getting home.
Until a few weeks ago, Rex Pereira was one of those stranded sailors. Trapped on a small tanker in the Gulf, shooting these videos of war raging around him.
And Iran was just flying opposite where we were. And we could see all the missile launching and the missiles, falling down.
Were you worried the ship was going to get hit?
Yes, we were worried.
Missiles, not the only danger. The ship also had no clean water.
There was no drinking water or fresh water on ship because the freshwater plant on ship machinery was not working.
Pereira has now returned back to India, but thousands of other sailors are hoping a peace deal will reopen the strait soon and get them safely home to shore. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, Doha, Qatar.
NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, Massachusetts drivers for some of these rideshare apps like Uber and Lyft have certified the first statewide union in the country. It's a pretty big deal for the gig economy, and the union says it could help address things like pay and working conditions. The union says it's set to represent nearly 70,000 drivers in Massachusetts. The governor there called it a day that was making history for both the state and the country. Out of our Southern Bureau, new video shows a huge fire over in Miami. Look at this. See those thick black smoke there? The fire apparently quickly spread from a junkyard to several other businesses nearby. More than 100 buildings in the area had to be evacuated, but firefighters say the good news is that nobody was hurt. And out of our Western Bureau, take a look at this, the moment members of the Coast Guard rescued a hiker stranded on a cliff in the Pacific Northwest. Rescuers say a 25-year-old woman was hurt after she fell on this mountain in Oregon. She was airlifted to a hospital and is now recovering at home. Coming up, why Congo's Ebola outbreak is so hard to contain. We're going to take you inside on the ground in Africa in tonight's breakdown. Next. Tonight, we're learning the CDC is ramping up its screening push for Ebola here in the United States. We can now report that the acting CDC director sent an internal email obtained by NBC News recruiting CDC staff members to help with screening at airports, basically asking for volunteers. For those interested in participating, the memo went on to say that a deployment could include checking international travelers for signs of illness, taking temperatures, etc. The email had a subject line that included the words urgent request. Was first reported by Bloomberg earlier today. No further comment officially from the CDC. All of it now as the head of the World Health Organization makes his way to the Democratic Republic of Congo. The organization warns the outbreak there is spreading faster than the response, with 220 suspected deaths and 900 suspected cases in the DRC alone. Molly Hunter's getting into why this outbreak in particular is so hard to contain in tonight's breakdown.
Frustrated crowds bang on the windows, shouting at the Ebola response teams arriving in SUVs at the Rampara Health Center. We want our colleague's body. Ebola doesn't exist, some shouted. Misinformation and skepticism in science is widespread here. In recent days, isolation tents were set on fire, healthcare facilities attacked by friends and relatives and local militias. During the attacks, some infected patients fled, further complicating the effort to contain the spread of Ebola across Ituri province, the epicenter in the northeast corner of the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is the DRC's 17th Ebola outbreak in the last 50 years, but even with that history, the rising death toll sows mistrust. Of the 5 million people living here, a quarter already require humanitarian assistance, and 1 in 5 already internally displaced due to decades of ethnic conflict on the eastern border with Uganda and Rwanda. People are really traumatized by the war, the insecurity, and now the disease, a local church leader tells us, asking for anonymity for fear of retaliation. We hope aid arrives quickly, he says, because if Ebola enters one of the many refugee camps, it will be a catastrophe. Humanitarian aid is arriving, but not quickly enough, according to organizations on the ground, the global response still ramping up. Volunteers are on the front line in hazmat suits, supervising safe burial practices, a dangerous transmission point, experts say, and Congolese Red Cross workers going door to door, sharing information about how Ebola is spread.
We need to ensure a coordinated approach to this, filling the gaps, making sure that the needs are covered, but we cannot also forget the underlying conditions that were already here.
Underlying conditions that make this rare strain of Ebola harder to contain than previous outbreaks. The WHO's Director General is on his way to the DRC today with a stark warning to African leaders. At the moment, Dr. Tedros said, the epidemic is outpacing us. Unlike the more common Zaire strain, there's no treatment, no vaccine, and it comes at a moment when international investment in global health, including from the United States, is significantly down.
For the health sector in 2025, there was a 70% decrease into the international assistance.
Health officials like the WHO's Dr. Anne Ancia, who works in the DRC, says they're playing catch-up. The virus likely circulated for weeks before the outbreak was declared.
We don't yet know the full extent of the outbreak. And now it is very difficult. We're running behind the outbreak. We're not yet, trying to control it.
Still working to break the chain of transmission, a massive challenge in an already unstable region. Molly Hunter, NBC News.
Our thanks to Molly for that reporting. We've got a lot more ahead tonight, including the team wearing the red, white, and blue in the World Cup just out. The roster just released, and guess who was there to catch it all live as it was happening? Stephanie Goss. Girl, what you got?
Yeah. Lucky me. 26 players. They were just named. Fresh off of being named, they got on a plane and went straight to Atlanta to start practicing. Their first game is June 12th. The big question for them is how far can they ride the wave of home field advantage? Coming up.
Big moments today. Big for soccer fans, because we met the squad that's going to represent the U.S. here in the U.S. for the World Cup in just the last few hours in New York. Big reveal featuring the little smoke cannons or whatever as people are coming out. Here's the big star, Christian Pulisic. Just a couple weeks from now, the U.S. is going to play one of its 3 guaranteed games in this World Cup out in L.A. They got to make it out of this group with Paraguay, Australia, Turkey to get to the knockout round. Remember, though, the U.S. doesn't typically make it very far, even if it gets to the World Cup. They finished third once back when, you know who topped the Billboard charts when it happened? Nobody, because the Billboard charts didn't even exist that long ago. 1930, that's how long ago it was. You see there, too, nearly half the time, the U.S. hasn't even qualified for the Cup. Stephanie Goss is in New York after the roster reveal. I'm not trying to be a bummer. I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm merely presenting the facts in context. It's all very exciting. Well, and if you're not a soccer fan, Steph, what do we need to know?
Okay, so the first thing you need to know about the World Cup is their slogan, which is never chase reality. So what does that mean, Hallie? Chase the dream.
Chase the dream.
And that is the hope for Team USA.
Who bought that
scarf?
Defy
expectations that well, my crack producers here on the ground scored this for me. I'm nearly certain I don't get to keep it. But for the moment, it's mine. And that's the hope. Look, the hope is that Team USA is going to defy expectations. They're going to use this opportunity to have home field advantage. And you're going to have Christian Pulisic and Tyler Adams and their striker, Folarin Balogun, whose name I am going to get down for certain by the time this all starts. And if they can dig deep and play really well, not only do they get out of the group, maybe they get into that single elimination round, 16-8, I don't know, maybe even quarterfinals, Hallie.
It's just exciting. I mean, it really is because, you know, as a football fan, like NFL-wise, I'm like psyched to get into the soccer piece of it because this is massive stuff, right? I mean, it's huge, it's global, the tickets are crazy, but also people want them, right?
Yeah, they do. But it's difficult to get here. We're in North America. The vast majority of people around the world who want to come and see a game have to cross a really big ocean and pay a lot of money for that ticket, only to get here with the tickets really expensive. We had a chance to talk to some fans today about those prices and their hopes that maybe some of them come down. Listen to this.
And I think it probably says a little bit more about FIFA than it does for the cities. I mean, I think the cities were kind of in a tough spot to have to sort of pay for everything themselves. I feel like FIFA could have maybe chipped in and helped the fans out.
I think the prices are going to go down in the next few weeks because I know that they're going to want to make sure that it's full stadiums and have as vibrant of an atmosphere as possible. So yeah, I'm going to wait a few weeks and then hopefully the prices will go down and I'll get the tickets.
So, I mean, listen, football fans, soccer fans, football everywhere else in the world are determined. They will end up going to these games, and the excitement is going to just start to pick up as things start happening, Hallie.
We're starting a new segment I've decided on the show called What to Expect When You're Expecting the World Cup. So what is the number one thing you are the most excited about? What are you most looking forward to?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I am going to Mexico City for the very first game of the World Cup. Mexico is playing South Africa. And, I mean, that country is going to lose its mind. That the World Cup is there, that it's being played in Mexico City, that first game. The excitement is going to be enormous. And there is going to be such pride in Mexico that it's all starting there. So I cannot wait to see it.
Yes, I'm so excited for you. Steph, bring the scarf, put it on the HJN tab. We got you, okay? We got scarf money.
I look
so
good in this
that's
scarf,
yours.
too.
Charge it to Jill.
Yes.
Thanks, girl. Appreciate you. You look good. We'll see you in Mexico City. Stephanie Goss.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. That does it for us for this hour. Thank you, as always, for watching. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.